The deep blackness of space stretched in every direction as the human exploration ship Dawn Seeker moved slowly toward the alien world of Varka. The planet hung in the dark like a glowing silver pearl. It had high, sharp mountain ranges, bright rivers of strange green light, and forests that looked more like living stone than trees. The crew had never seen a planet like it. Varka was home to the Shwari, one of the most mysterious and powerful alien races in the galaxy. They had rarely allowed visitors, and even then, their rules were very strict. No one was allowed to walk freely. No one was allowed to take pictures. But there was one rule above all others. Do not speak to the Shwari females. Do not approach them. Do not look at them. Do not ask questions. Tarin, a quiet but curious human assigned as a communications officer, stood near the wide window of the ship's viewing deck. His eyes stayed on the glowing surface of Varka. He had read all the reports. He knew the warnings. Still, something about the silence around the Shwari women felt strange to him. Other alien races had rules, but this one seemed more like fear than tradition. The captain of the ship, an older man named Rel, gave the usual orders as they prepared to land. "Remember your place," he said to the crew. "This is not Earth. The Shwari are proud, and they do not forgive mistakes. Speak only when spoken to. Look down when a female passes. That's their way." Tarin nodded, but his thoughts stayed with what he had read before the mission. Long ago, the Shwari were not divided the way they were now. There were stories, old and mostly hidden, about Shwari females being leaders, thinkers, even warriors. But none of the Shwari today spoke about that time. They acted like it had never happened. When the crew landed on Varka, they were met by tall Shwari guards in silver armor. Their faces were partly covered with metal masks. They spoke with deep, sharp voices and moved with silent control. Tarin walked among them, careful not to stare. The city they entered was called Jarnu, a place made of stone towers and long bridges that hung above rivers of moving light. The Shwari people walked slowly and spoke quietly. Everything felt calm, almost a calm. Tarin noticed that whenever a female passed, even the male Shwari bowed their heads. The females wore long robes, their faces partly hidden, their eyes always looking forward. During a welcoming ceremony in a large hall made of glowing crystal walls, the human crew stood in a line while a Shwari elder gave a speech. His voice echoed off the walls. He welcomed them and spoke of peace, trade, and understanding. It was polite, but cold. Tarin's single quotes' attention drifted. Across the hall, standing in silence, was a group of Shwari females. There were 5 of them, standing perfectly. Still, they were not introduced. No one spoke to them. It was as if they were statues meant only to be seen and forgotten. Then it happened. One of them looked up. Her eyes met Tarin's. It was a small moment, no longer than a heartbeat. But in that time, something passed between them. Her eyes were not empty or cold. They were sharp, intelligent, full of thought. She gave the smallest nod. Then she looked away. Tarin's breath caught in his chest. He looked around. No one else seemed to notice, or perhaps they had, and chose to ignore it. That night, back on the ship, Tarin could not sleep. The image of the Shwari female's eyes stayed in his mind. He searched through the ship's database, digging into old reports, rare stories, anything about the Shwari culture before the Silence Law began. One story, old and hidden deep in the files, spoke of a Shwari queen named Alira who ruled 1,000 years ago. She was known for her wisdom and strength. Her leadership brought peace to many star systems. But after her death, a new order rose, one that pushed the females out of power, placing silence above all else. The next day, Tarin walked through the city again with a small group. They were taken to a crystal garden where Shwari flowers bloomed with soft glowing lights. Once again, a group of females passed nearby, and again, Tarin saw her, the same one from before. She looked at him once more, this time stopping for a moment. She said nothing, neither did he, but he nodded, and slowly, carefully, she gave a small nod in return. A Shwari guard noticed and stepped closer. Tarin looked down quickly, pretending to admire a flower. The moment passed, but the thought did. Not. Why him? Why did she choose to look at him? Was it a mistake or something else? Later that evening, back at the visitor quarters, the team gathered for a report. Captain Rel was serious. There are whispers, he said. A Shwari female has made eye contact with one of us. You all know the rule. We are not here to question their ways. We are here as guests. He didn't say Taryn's name, but everyone looked at him. Taryn stayed silent. He felt a mix of worry and wonder. He had broken a rule, even if only in a small way, but it had not felt wrong. It had felt right. Outside the window, the city of Jarnu glowed in the dark, quiet as ever. But something had changed. A crack had opened in the silence, and Taryn was the reason. The morning air on Varka was cool and filled with a soft hum that came from the stone trees outside the city. Taryn stood on the balcony of the guests' quarters, looking out at the glowing rivers and tall towers. He had not told anyone about what happened the day before. He knew he should follow orders, but something inside him told him not to stay silent. A small bell rang in the room behind him. It was a signal for the day's schedule. Taryn stepped back inside and joined the rest of the human team. Captain Rel stood near a table, reading from a screen. Today we attend a cultural ceremony at the Central Plaza, he said. Follow all rules. Stay with the group. No one speaks unless spoken to. The team nodded. Taryn stayed quiet. His thoughts were on the Shwari female who had looked at him. He didn't know her name, but her face was clear in his mind. They walked through the stone city with Tishwari guides leading the way. The streets were clean and quiet. Birds with silver wings flew between the towers, and the light from the rivers reflected on the walls. As they entered the plaza, Taryn saw a large gathering of Shwaris standing in lines. At the center was a round platform made of glass that floated just above the ground. On the platform stood several Shwari males, dressed in long robes. Behind them, like before, were female Shwari standing still. Their hands were folded. Their eyes were low. Taryn's eyes searched the group. He didn't expect to see her again, but then he did. She stood near the far edge of the platform, her robe shining softly under the sun. She looked up. This time, she looked straight at him and didn't look away. Taryn felt a strange mix of fear and calm. The others hadn't noticed yet. The ceremony was starting. A Shwari male stepped forward and began speaking in their deep voice, telling a story from their history. Taryn didn't understand most of it, but he didn't care. His eyes stayed locked on hers. And then, without planning, without thinking too much, Taryn gave a small smile and whispered, "Hello." His voice was soft, almost silent, but it traveled across the quiet space. A few heads turned. The Shwari male on the platform paused. Then the unexpected happened. The Shwari female, the one who had looked at him, spoke. "Hello, human," she said in perfect galactic common. Gasps came from every corner of the plaza. Even the birds above scattered. The human team froze in place. The Shwari guards raised their weapons but did not act. The female who had spoken raised one hand calmly. The guards stopped. Captain Rel turned to Taryn with wide eyes. "What have you done?" He whispered. "I only said hello," Taryn replied. The crowd of Shwari was still. No one moved. The female stepped forward. Her face was calm, her voice firm. "My name is Nira," she said, "and I am not afraid to speak." The council members on the platform looked shocked. One of them stepped forward. "You are breaking the sacred silence," he said. Nira looked at him without fear. The silence was made by fear, not truth. The human team was quickly led away from the plaza by their guards. Taryn walked silently, heart beating fast. He didn't know what would happen now. Maybe they would be sent home. Maybe worse. Back in the guest quarters, the humans were told to wait. The doors were locked from the outside. Hours passed. No messages came. No one spoke. Finally, the door opened. A Shwari messenger stepped inside. "Taryn must come with us, alone." Captain Rel tried to argue, but the guard said it was not a request. Taryn stood up and nodded. He followed the two silent Shwari through long halls and glowing corridors. They stopped in front of a round chamber made of clear glass. Inside stood Nira. The guards left him at the door. It opened with a soft sound. Tarin stepped in. "Why? Did you speak to me?" Nira asked. "I don't know," Tarin said honestly. "It felt wrong to ignore you." She nodded slowly. "You are the first outsider to speak to a Shwari female in over 400 years. Why?" Tarin asked. "Why are you all kept silent?" Nira looked out the glass wall at the city beyond. "Long ago, Shwari females ruled. We led with balance, but there was a war. A group of male leaders took control and made the silence law. They said it was to protect us. In truth, it was to control us. Why did the others follow it?" Tarin asked. "Fear," she said. "And time. When something is done long enough, people forget it can be changed." She turned back to him. "But you spoke. You were not afraid." "I didn't mean to start anything," he said. "You started hope," she replied. They talked for a while. Nira spoke of the old ways, of secret learning shared among Shwari females, of hidden libraries and voices waiting to be heard again. She said there were others like her, quietly watching, quietly planning. "You are not like the others," she said. "Most fear what they don't understand. You asked no permission, you simply spoke." Tarin smiled. "Is that a good thing for me?" "Yes," she said. "For the Shwari, we will see." Later, the guards returned and took him back. But the seed had been planted. The silence had been broken. That night, in the city of Jarnu, whispers moved like wind. Some spoke of danger, others spoke of change. But all agreed on one thing: a human had done the unthinkable, had looked into the eyes of a Shwari female and said hello, and she had answered. The next morning, the sun of Varka rose behind tall stone towers. Its light made the city shine like silver, but the city did not feel the same. Something had changed. The silence was still there, but now it was filled with questions. Eyes watched. From behind windows, voices were low, but no longer empty. Inside the guest quarters, Tarin sat alone. The rest of the human team avoided him. They did not speak, but their faces said enough. Some were afraid, others were angry. Only Captain Rel had spoken to him. "You've crossed a line," Rel had said. "You didn't just speak to her. You made her speak back. We don't know what that means for us or for this world." Tarin understood, but he could not take back what had happened, and deep in his heart, he didn't want to. Before sunrise, a message came, a simple symbol on a small screen, not from the Shwari Council, but from someone else. Tarin knew it was from Nira. The guards arrived soon after. They said nothing, but one pointed down the hallway. Tarin followed. He passed through long crystal corridors and narrow stone bridges. Finally, they entered a wide round chamber under the great tower. There, waiting for him, was a Shwari elder. His robe was deep blue, his eyes calm and old. Behind him stood Nira, quiet but strong. "I'm Elder Dalo," the old one said. "You spoke to a Shwari female, and she spoke back. Do you know what that means?" Tarin stayed still. "I think it means the silence is not natural. It was never meant to last forever." Dalo gave a small nod. "Long ago, that was true. But history here is like sand in the wind. Most only remember what they are told. Few ask why." Nira stepped forward. Elder Dalo is one of the few who still remembers the old stories. Dalo raised his hand. A panel on the wall opened, and a small glowing orb floated into the air. It showed pictures, moving lights, shapes, voices from the past. Tarin saw what no human had seen before. Thousands of years ago, the Shwari were different. Their cities were built by both male and female minds. The leaders were often women, chosen for their wisdom, not power. There was balance. Then came war. A group of Shwari males, driven by fear and pride, broke away. They called themselves the voice of order. They believed females were too soft to lead. They used force, lies, and fear to rise. The war ended with a peace agreement, but the cost was silence. Female leaders were removed. A law was passed: no Shwari female shall speak to outsiders. Their voices were taken, not lost. Tarin watched the images fade. The orb returned to the wall. "I never read any of this in the records," he said quietly. "You were not meant to," Dala replied. "This knowledge is hidden, even for most Shwari. But now, you have seen it. Why me?" Tarin asked. "Why show me this?" "Because you spoke," Nira said, "and because you listened." Tarin turned to her. "What happens now?" "We begin," she said. "There are others like me, others who remember. We have waited. We have watched, but we needed a spark, something small, something brave." Dala walked toward a tall seat, made of stone. He sat down slowly. "But not all Shwari will accept this. Many still fear change. Many hold tight to the silence." Tarin nodded. "So this won't be easy." "No," Nira said. "But nothing worth doing ever is, over the next few days." Tarin met with Nira in secret. She showed him hidden parts of the city, underground rooms with old books, ancient tapes, forgotten machines. He learned more about Shwari history than any outsider had ever known. He also saw the pain. Many females lived in silence not by choice, but by pressure. Some still believed they had no right to speak. Others feared punishment. A few had hope, but didn't know what to do. Tarin spoke to them carefully. He did not push. He asked questions. He listened, and sometimes, when no one was watching, they spoke back. One night, Nira brought him to a rooftop above the city. The stars shone bright. Below, the lights of Varka moved like soft waves. "Do you still want to help us?" she asked. "Yes," Tarin said, "but I don't want to lead. I want to stand beside you." Nira smiled. "That is why you are different." At that moment, another voice spoke from the shadows, a deep voice, sharp and cold. "You should not be here." Tarin turned fast. A Shwari male stepped from the darkness. His armor was black, his eyes narrow. He was not like Dalo. His name was Vorn. He was a member of the High Council. "You break the old ways," Vorn said. "You wake a storm that should stay asleep." Nira stepped forward. "The old ways were built on fear. They kept order." Vorn replied, "They kept us silent." She said Vor and looked at Tarin. "You are not welcome. You will leave Varka at sunrise. That is your only chance to walk away in peace." Then he turned and vanished into the night. Tarin looked at Nira. Her face was calm, but her hands were tight. "He is powerful," she said. "Many still follow him. I'm not afraid." Tarin said, "We've come this far. I won't run. Now, then we must move faster," she said, "before others try to stop us." The stars above seemed to shine brighter as they stood together on the rooftop. Below them, the city of silence was beginning to shift, quietly, slowly. Change was coming. And Tarin, the human who had spoken a single word, was now part of something much bigger than himself. The city of Jarnu was quiet, but beneath its calm surface, a change was beginning. Tarin walked carefully through the crystal streets. He was not alone. Nira, the Shwari female who had spoken to him, walked beside him. Her steps were soft but sure. They moved toward a secret meeting place hidden in the lower levels of the city. It was a room carved into the stone beneath the great tower. The walls glowed with soft light, and old Shwari symbols were carved into every surface. Inside, a small group waited. There were 4 other Shwari females. Each one wore robes like Nira's, but their eyes were full of different feelings: hope, fear, strength, and doubt. Nira smiled softly. "This is the beginning," she said. "We have waited for centuries for this moment." Tarin looked at the group. "I am honored to be here, but I do not want to lead. I want to help." One woman stepped forward. Her name was Sila. "You have helped already, human. You gave us something we lost, a voice." Another, younger, spoke quietly. "But many fear what comes next." Nira nodded. "That is true. The males in power will not give up control easily. But silence is not the answer." Tarin thought about the last time he had seen Vorn, the angry elder who warned him to leave. What can we do to change their minds? Sila shook her head. "Words alone will not be enough. We need to show them that we are strong, that our voices can bring peace and strength, not chaos." Nira looked at Tarin. "Your people are different. Humans do not live in silence. They speak, share, and listen. That is why you are not afraid. Tarin smiled. Maybe, or maybe we are just stubborn. The women laughed softly. Nira reached into a small bag and pulled out a thin device made of shining metal. This is a transmitter. It can send our voices beyond Varka. It will help us talk to others who want change. Not all Shwari females are ready to speak openly. This will help them speak quietly. Tarin took the device carefully. I will help you send the message for days. Tarin worked with Nira and the others. They sent messages to secret groups. Across the city, they talked of hope, unity, and strength. More females answered back. The hidden voices were no longer silent, but the resistance was not without danger. Guards watched the meetings closely. Sometimes, strange men appeared at night, trying to break the meetings apart. Tarin and Nira had to be careful. One evening, as they left the meeting place, a group of guards blocked their path. You are breaking the law, one said. Come with us. Nira stood tall. We only want peace. The guards sneered. Peace is not silence. You break the law. Tarin stepped forward. You fear change, but change is coming. The leader of the guards raised a weapon. Before he could act, a group of Shwari males arrived. They stopped the guards and spoke in low voices. One of them, Dalo, the elder who had shown Tarin the old stories, stepped forward. Let them go. He said, their cause is not wrong. The guards lowered their weapons and moved aside. Tarin looked at Dalo, grateful. You are hope. Dalo said quietly. Nira turned to Tarin. We must be ready for what comes next, over the next days. Tarin helped Nira send messages beyond Varka. Other planets heard the Shwari females' call. Some sent quiet support. Others stayed silent. Tarin thought about Earth. He wondered what his people would think if they knew a human had started a revolution on a distant world. One night, Nira invited Tarin to her home. It was a small room filled with old books and soft lights. She spoke softly. Tarin, thank you. You have done more than you know. He shook his head. I only listen. She smiled. Listening is the first step to understanding. Suddenly, a soft sound came from outside. Nira's eyes grew sharp. They are watching us. Tarin nodded. We must be careful. Together, they prepared. For the challenges ahead, change was coming to Varka, and the voice of the Shwari females was no longer silent. The quiet city of Jarnu hid many secrets beneath its shining towers and glowing rivers. A quiet storm was growing. Tarin and Nira knew this well. Their efforts to bring back the voices of the Shwari females were starting to make waves. In a hidden room beneath the city, the small group of Shwari females gathered again. The air was thick with hope and worry. Sila, the strongest among them, spoke first. We grow stronger, she said. More females answer our call. But the guards watch us closely. Soon, they may try to stop us for good. Nira nodded. We must be careful, but we cannot stop. Our voices must be heard. Tarin stood quietly, listening. He knew the risk was growing. The Shwari males who wanted silence were powerful, and many believed that breaking the law meant war. Outside the secret room, shadows moved. A group of Shwari males gathered in the dark. Their leader was Vorn, the angry elder who had warned Tarin to leave. We cannot allow this, Vorn said. His voice was low but filled with anger. These females break our traditions. They threaten our order. One of his followers nodded. We should end this now, before it spreads. No. Vorn replied, we must be smart. The human must leave. The females must be silenced. But if we move too quickly, the council may act against us. Back inside the secret room, Tarin spoke. We need allies, not just females, but males who believe in change. Nira looked at him. There are some. Dalo, the elder, supports us. But he is old, and few listen to him, Sila added, and there are others who quietly agree but fear Vorn. Tarin thought for a moment. Then we must show them that change is safe, that it will bring strength, not weakness. They planned carefully. Over the next days, they sent messages to known Shwari males who had shown kindness or openness. Some replied in secret, Some did not. One evening, a young Shwari male named Kellen arrived at their meeting place. He was nervous but determined. "I have heard your words," Kellen said. "I do not agree with silence. My family taught me differently." Nira smiled. "You are welcome here." Kellen stayed with them, sharing news from outside. He said many Shwari males were confused and worried. Some believed change was impossible. Others feared the power of the females returning. Meanwhile, tensions in the city grew. Rumors spread that the Shwari females were planning an uprising. Vorn used these stories to gain support among the council. One night, as Tarin and Nira walked through the city, they felt eyes watching. Suddenly, they were surrounded by guards. "You break the law," one guard said. "Come with us, Tarin. Step forward. We want peace. We want only to speak." The guards were not moved. They grabbed Nira's arm roughly. Tarin tried to stop them but was pushed aside. Suddenly, from the shadows, a group of Shwari males appeared, led by Dalo and Kellen. They stepped between the guards and the prisoners. "Stand down." Dalo commanded. "This is not the way." The guards hesitated, then lowered their weapons. Nira looked at Tarin, her eyes shining. This is the resistance within. The next days were tense. The council met to decide what to do. Vorn pushed for punishment. Dalo and others argued for peace and dialogue. Tarin and Nira waited, unsure of the outcome. Then, a message came from the outer planets. Some worlds offered quiet support for the Shwari females. Others sent warnings not to interfere. The Shwari council was divided, but the courage of the human and the females had changed many minds. Tarin knew their fight was just beginning, but for the first time, hope was real. The sun rose over Jarnu, but this morning felt different. It was quiet, but not the same kind of silence that had always surrounded the Shwari people. This silence felt like the pause before something big. The whole city seemed to be holding its breath. Tarin stood beside Nira at the edge of the Grand Council Hall. The building was tall and shining, with stone carvings of ancient leaders on its walls. Today, Nira was going to speak, not in secret, not in hiding, but in front of the entire council. "You don't have to do this," Tarin said quietly. "I do," Nira replied. "We've waited too long. If we stay silent now, we lose everything." She wore no mask, no robe to hide her face. Her voice had returned, and today it would echo across the heart of her people. As they entered the hall, the room was filled with elders, guards, and visitors from nearby cities. Even some off-world ambassadors were present. The human crew, including Captain Rel, sat at the side, watching closely. The Shwari council sat in a half-circle of stone seats. In the center was Elder Vorn, his face cold and unmoving. To his left sat Elder Dalo, calm as always, eyes full of quiet strength. Vorn stood. "Today, we allow a voice to be heard that has not been heard in generations. This is against all tradition. But the council has agreed to listen." Nira, step forward. Nira walked to the center of the hall. Her voice was steady. "I speak not only for myself, but for all Shwari females who have waited in silence for too long. We were once leaders, teachers, scientists, and warriors. We built this world alongside our brothers. Then we were silenced, not by fate, not by choice, but by fear." Whispers moved through the hall. Some faces showed shock, others curiosity. A few showed quiet agreement. Nira continued. "Silence was not peace, it was control. And now, we are ready to return, not with anger, not with war, but with unity. The Shwari must rise together. Again, we do not want to replace the old leaders. We want to walk beside them." Vorn stood quickly. "This is dangerous. These words are meant to divide us. The silence protected us for centuries. It kept our society stable." Nira looked at him calmly. "Stability built on fear is not strength. It is weakness." Gasps filled the room. But then, slowly, a few council members nodded. Then Tarin stepped forward. The guards moved, but Dalo raised his hand. Tarin looked around. "I come from a world where mistakes were made and voices were once denied. But we learned that progress only comes when every voice is heard. I didn't come here to change your world. I came here to understand it, and now I see it more clearly than ever. Vorn spoke again. You speak boldly, human. But this is not your planet. You do not decide what is best for us. Tarin nodded. That's true. But maybe your people should decide for themselves. Not just the ones who have always spoken, but the ones who never could. The hall fell into silence again. Then, from the back of the hall, another voice was heard. A female voice. I agree. A Shwari woman stepped forward from the crowd. Then another, and another. One by one, Shwari females stood and spoke simple words. I am not afraid anymore. I have thoughts that must be shared. We deserve to speak. We deserve to be heard. Even some Shwari males stood up. We support our sisters. We want peace and balance. Vorn looked around, his anger turning to unease. He stepped back. Suddenly, the ground shook. The walls of the council hall trembled. A loud sound came from outside, alarms and shouting. A group of masked Shwari rebels stormed the courtyard. These were not peaceful voices. They had come to stop the change by force. They believed Nira's words were poison. They wanted to return to the old rule, even if they had to break the city to do it. Guards rushed outside. Chaos filled the hall. Tarin grabbed Nira's hand. We have to stop this. We can't let this become war. Nira nodded. Come with me. They ran through secret paths under the council hall, through tunnels that only old leaders knew. Dalo joined them, guiding them to a control room hidden in the mountain wall. Inside was ancient Shwari technology, tools from the time before silence. Dalo opened a panel and activated a glowing sphere. This device can send a sound wave across the city, he explained. It was once used for emergency calls. Now, it will carry your voice. Nira stepped forward. Let them hear me. Tarin stood beside her as she spoke into the sphere. Her voice echoed, clear and strong, across every street, every home, every heart. People of Varka, do not fear the future. Do not fight your sisters. We do not seek to destroy. We seek to unite. Lay down your weapons. Stand in peace. Stand. In truth, the fighting in the courtyard stopped. The rebels, hearing her voice, hesitated. Some dropped their weapons. Others fled. Peace returned, not by force, but by a voice that had been missing for centuries. Back in the council hall, the elders returned to their seats. Elder Dalo stood. The people have spoken, he said. Change is not coming. It is already here. Vorn sat in silence. Nira walked back to the center. She looked at every face. This is not the end. This is the beginning. Tarin smiled. The mission had changed. He had come as a visitor. Now he stood as part of a new future. And it had started with a simple word, hello. The sun rose over the city of Varka with a soft golden light. It was the first morning after the council's decision. Something in the air had changed. The streets felt more alive. People spoke in hushed tones, but not out of fear. They were talking about what had happened, about Nira's voice, about the voices of the others, about hope. Tarin stood on a balcony near the council hall. He looked down at the city below. The damage from the brief rebel attack was already being repaired. Broken walls were being fixed. The marketplace was open again. Children were playing near the fountain. Nira joined him. She wore a simple robe, but there was no mask on her face. Her expression was calm and focused. You did it, Tarin said. Your voice changed everything. Nira shook her head. We did it together, and this is just the beginning. Later that day, the council met again. This time, 3 female Shwari had been invited to join. They were not given full seats, but they were allowed to speak. It was the first step. Elder Dalo opened the session. Today, we listen not only with ears, but with hearts. Our world must grow, and we must grow with it. The meeting was peaceful. Voices were calm. Ideas were shared. Even Elder Vorn listened without interrupting. After the meeting, Nira and Tarin walked through the inner city. Many people stopped to greet Nira. Some thanked her. Some simply nodded. A few still looked uncertain, but no one looked away in fear. A young Shwari girl ran up to Nira. My mother says I can speak at home now. She says I can ask questions. Nira bent down. That's very good. Always ask questions and never stop learning. The girl smiled and ran off. Tarin smiled too. You're becoming a symbol. I don't want to be a symbol, Nira said. I want to be part of something real. They reached the edge of the city, where the human ship was still parked. Captain Rel and his crew were preparing for departure. Supplies were being loaded. Repairs were complete. Captain Rel walked up to Tarin. We'll be ready to leave in 2 days. I thought you might want to come back with us. Tarin looked at the ship, then at Nira, then back at the ship. Maybe. I'm still deciding. Rel nodded. You've done something big here. Whatever you choose next, I respect it. That night, Nira took Tarin to an old tower near the river. It was a forgotten place, filled with dust and old writing. Stone walls were carved with stories from long ago. Stories of both male and female Shwari working side by side. This place was once a school, Nira explained. Now, I want to rebuild it. I want it to become a place of learning again, for everyone. No masks, no silence. Tarin walked through the halls. The walls whispered of forgotten times. He could almost hear the laughter of children and the lessons of old teachers. You'll need help. He said, I will, Nira answered. Will you stay? Tarin thought for a long time. He thought about Earth, about his old life, about the silence of the Shwari and how it had been broken, about what came next. I think this is where I'm meant to be, not just for you, but for all of this. If I can help build something better, then that's worth staying for. Nira smiled. Then let's begin. The next morning, news spread across the planet. The council had officially allowed Shwari females to speak freely. Cities far from Varka began holding small gatherings. Many were unsure, but they listened. The silence had been broken, and now words filled the air. Tarin began teaching small groups at the school. He taught basic science, shared human knowledge, and answered questions. Nira taught history and language together. They built a learning place where ideas could grow. More humans came. Some brought tools, books, and knowledge, but they didn't take control. They came to learn and help. The rebel group that had attacked the council hall faded into silence. Most of them were not truly evil. They were just afraid. But as peace held and progress moved forward, even fear began to fade. Months passed. The school became a center of learning. Female and male Shwari sat side by side. The city of Varka became a symbol of change. Other cities began their own changes too. One evening, Tarin stood at the edge of the river. He watched the stars appear in the sky. Nira joined him. It's strange, he said. Back on Earth, I always felt like I didn't belong. But here, among aliens on a distant world, I feel more at home than ever. Nira looked at him. Maybe home isn't a place. Maybe it's where you're needed. Tarin nodded. You were never meant to be silent. You were always strong. I just reminded you. No, Nira said softly. You believed in me when no one else did. That changed everything. In the distance, the school tower stood tall, its lights shining in the dark. Back at the council hall, new voices were being heard. Change was not easy. It would take time. But it had begun. And it had started with one human who dared to speak, one Shwari who dared to answer, and many who dared to listen.